Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another FileCloud webinar. Today, we're going to be discussing how to enable and configure FileCloud's index search. So during today's topics, we'll be discussing how to configure Solar Search, how the amount of RAM needed, index search, and what to expect, right? These are some topics that we'll be covering today. We're going to be discussing about some of the difference between online and on-premise in regards to this feature. Now, without further ado, let's get started. All right. So over here on my screen, let's talk about the simple deployment. This works the same way on-premise on Linux and or on Windows. So the first thing you want to do, right, after you installed FileCloud itself, you're going to get a couple of options. Remember to start the database, the web server, the cron job, the message queue, followed by the content search at the bottom. This is your control panel. You usually get this after you just installed FileCloud. When on Linux, it works exactly a similar way. There's a couple of minor differences that we're going to be reviewing under our documentation. Now, do keep in mind that in order to run Solar, you will need OpenJDK. The moment that you install it, you're going to get a little pop out that's going to say, hey, OpenJDK is needed. Once you install the OpenJDK, it's just a matter of clicking on Start. When you click on the content search and you click on Start, you're going to get this little pop-up that says, please waiting while the service is starting. Now, the way that Solar works within FileCloud to provide data content search, it's actually spinning up, per se, its own server in the background. We're going to be reviewing this in a couple of minutes. Now the server has started. All you got to do is direct yourself to FileCloud's admin portal. Scroll down over to Settings. Go ahead and click on the Content Search tab. And in my case, mine is already started. As you can see, it says configured. I'm going to reset it just for this particular scenario. And this is exactly what you get at the beginning, right? You just click on go ahead and click on configure. Automatically, that will create the Solar core for you and it will start indexing. Now, it is very important that since I reset it, I'm going to have to click on Search Tokenizer and index. The reason this is needed is because I already had started my own system, and what I ended up doing is that I needed to reset the whole thing. Now let's talk a little bit about Solar while my system is actually indexing its own data. Now, in this scenario, I'm going to go ahead and let's access the Solar core. To access the Solar core, you can access the localhost IP on the server directly by accessing 127.0.0.1 column, and then you put in the port number. The port number is 8983. That's just default. You can change this. Hit enter. And we're immediately going to be accessing the Solar admin panel. Now, at the moment, the Solar admin panel gives me a lot of important information. Number one, it lets me know how much physical memory I have on my system and how much JVM memory. JVM stands for Java Virtual Memory. This is in regards to how much RAM will you be needing. So the more files you have, the more resources Solar is going to take. This panel right here will give you a good idea on how much RAM you will need. In this case, I'm only giving it 512 megabytes, but I'm only using 333 megabytes. So I'm saying my usage in RAM here is okay. You can extend it more by modifying the registry options within Solar and then give it more RAM. In order to do this, you can easily go into Solar documentation or go at getfilecloud.com/support docs. And you'll be redirected to our support documentation where you can type just words like Solar. Now, within the Solar configuration tips, you're going to get a lot of information on how to set it up correctly. For example, in here, you can see particularly where to access to edit the amount of RAM needed. For example, in this parameter, I'm telling it, hey, I'm going to give you 2 gigs. But if you want to give it more, you can change this number right here to 4, 5, 6, 16, whatever amount of gigs you want to give it. Back again, this really highly depends on the amount of files you have and what you're getting here. For example, if you're seeing it's very much getting a lot of load, you might as well add it accordingly, right? We're also providing you this information for Linux as well as in Windows and other security parameters that you can review. Once again, you can view this information by going at getfilecloud.com/support docs and search for Solar configuration tips. Now going back here, Solar will give you a lot of information. For example, if you go to the login, you can see, hey, there's an error here because of ABC, or there is an issue here because X, Y, Z. You get a lot of information as well. You can get information about your core. In this case, I'm using FC core. What does this really stand for? Well, the core is just the location and where the data is being stored. For example, in here I see it has 2 out of 2 being indexed. 2 out of 2 means that all the files that I've added have been indexed. Now let me give you a quick live example. I'm going to log in with my user. And we're going to create a simple file here, just for the purpose of this webinar. File XYZ, for example. And I'm going to add so here are a couple of words. The content's not really what's important, but it's the amount of having some words in it, right? In this scenario, what I would do is I would just simply go ahead, go into my files and drag and drop this file. The moment I do that, immediately FileCloud, and I'm going to go ahead and access our admin portal back again. I'm jumping back. And I click on check, immediately going to see it immediately index a new document. So what's so cool about the indexing feature? Well, think about it this way. When you're searching for a file, you can do it by multiple ways. You can do it by name, content only, or metadata. I'm going to allow all here. And I'm going to type the word webinar. Now, FileCloud will proceed on searching all of the files that have that word within it. For example, in here, you see how it actually located the word within the document? That is what we refer by indexing search. FileCloud has the capability of going inside the document and searching for words that are located within the document. That's what we refer as to indexing. Now, the great benefit that this provides to you is that it is very common that we forget the name of a document, but maybe remember the content of that document. You can easily search for that document just based on its content rather than trying to remember what the file's name was like. Now, Solar also brings other features to the table. This is just its main functionality, but we also have some really cooler features that are attached with this that are not exclusively related to this topic, but are within our other webinars. For example, we got content classification. And what content classification is going to do is that it will, based on predefined rules, it will scan a document and based on Solar's, right? And within the document's content, it can add a metadata tag, right? Automatically, like to classify that document. So think about it this way. If a document has PII data, Solar will be able to scan that PII data. It will be able to identify it based on smart classification. Hey, this document has PII data. Add the tag to it so you can classify it better. And even better, if you want to level up that even more based on that metadata, it can actually apply a DLP rule and prevent somebody to download or share the document with PII data. There's some of the example on how Solar comes into play. Now, this is very exclusive for FileCloud on-premise. Now, you're going to have this feature available during your trial when you have it on-premise, but for FileCloud Online, this is not a feature that's available during your trial. This will be a feature that's available under your production environment. If you would like more information between the differences on production environments and trials, feel free to reach out to our sales department at sales@colate.com. So at this point, we have reviewed what is Solar Indexing Search, how to set it up in FileCloud, and what are its capabilities and how to extend its RAM based on its needs. We also did a quick review on the Solar Admin Portal and how does all of our other features combine together to form a bigger solution. At this point, I'm gonna make a quick stop and have a section open for questions in case there are any. Feel free at this point to post your questions on the chat um, in case you have any doubts regarding any of the topics that were discussed today. This will be open for about 2-3 minutes. Okay, I see one coming in. So yes, Solar is completely available in our Linux version. In our Linux version of FileCloud, Solar configuration is pretty similar as soon as it starts as a services. However, do keep in mind that you will need to create the core of it. Installing content search in FileCloud Linux, you have a couple of pre-requirements as I was mentioning, right? Second, and Windows, you're going to need OpenJDK. You will need to follow these steps. All of this will be provided after this webinar. We will be sharing all the documentation with you so you can get started. As well, if you need any assistance with this, just reach out to the support team at support@getfilecloud.com. As well, since that was the only question that was brought up, first off, thank you very much for assisting our webinar today. Quick start guide will be emailed to all attendants in this session. If you need help, feel free to contact support team at support@colate.com. Once again, that's support@colate.com. Or visit our documentation at getfilecloud.com/support docs. You do not require to log in to visit our documentation. Our documentation is public. And as well, anything we can do for you, let us know. Once again, thank you for attending another FileCloud webinar. You have a great week.